Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. This is the stainless steel version of the Vacheron Constantin Historiques chronograph corne de vache, reference 5000H. It is based on the original 1955 6087 model, which was built over several decades in about 3 dozen copies. This is a modern version in steel as launched in 2019, and it represents the most wearable of the latter-day corne de vache collection. The watch is 38.5 millimeters in diameter in steel, 11.1 millimeters thick as I measure it, and 47.4 from lug to lug with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now, the modern corne de vache launched in precious metal in 2015, but steel is more durable, making this easier to wear on a daily basis without fear. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you can see being relatively compact with rather tightly downturned lug profiles. This watch would probably wear on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference, making it viable for both men and women, as well as small wrists in general. Down the barrel, you can really see how much clearance I have between the ends of the lugs and the edge of my wrist. Over the top, which usually exaggerates the width of the watch, you can still see that I've got decent clearance on both sides, and the cuff profile proving it will easily slide underneath the dress shirt. The strap's a lovely piece. A medium brown, large rectangular scale alligator leather, semi-gloss finish, a lightly contrasting red stitch makes it sporty. And then you can see we have a folded edge and small round scale alligator on the bottom. This is something you see more and more often on high luxury brands. A few $100s more for the strap, but it lasts years longer because of the durability of having alligator on the bottom rather than the more common calfskin. Okay, so taking a look at the buckle, deployant clasp with the Maltese cross logo of the company as part of the buckle. You press both triggers, one side opens. Being trigger actuated, it can't fly open inadvertently. It's not friction fit. We have that Maltese cross motif internally again. You can see here we have a combination of polish and media blast. And then rolling over to the case, the namesake of the model, corne de vache, the horns of a cow. Cows are a, if not sacred, culturally indispensable element of Swiss history, heritage, and pop culture. And so to have a corne de vache Vacheron is to root it deeply within the imagery of the Swiss countryside. Now, Vacheron, of course, a Geneva watchmaker. They're not out in the Vallée du Joux where those cows are prominent. All the same, it is a little bit of a nod to Swiss heritage as much as Vacheron's own heritage. The dial featuring a sort of gray combination of opaline or light frosting with a lighter silver white for the track inboard against which you can read the minutes and fractions of seconds. It has a vintage style tachymeter on the dial. Later on, after the early 60s, you'd almost always see tachymeters on the bezel. So this is very much a 1950s look. Twin counters, and you can see running seconds at 9, chronograph minutes over at 3 o'clock. You'll watch as the chronograph seconds rolls through. We have an instantaneous jumping minute hand for this Le Mans 2310 base, redone and doing business as Vacheron caliber 1142. And we have lovely hands. As you can see, they are baton style, pointed at the end and then rounded across their top and bright polished, probably in the most sophisticated, refined, and appealing feature of this already quite comely dial. The hands, as well as the numerals, the indice, and the Vacheron logo up at the top, there's that Maltese cross again. Those are all white gold to resist tarnishing or oxidation over time. Chronograph seconds in blue, chronograph minutes in blue, and then these sunken registers have a little concentric pattern internally with a nice matte finished opaline metallic base that glows rather than shines. The tachymeter can be used with the chronograph to gauge the speed of an object, such as a race car over a kilometer, and that's usually the intention with base 1000 at time, things moving at relatively high speeds. Now, when you turn it over, you can see this watch has a screwed-in case back, but it's still 30 meters water resistant. The movement, the Le Mans 2310, was born in the early 1940s as a collaboration between Le Mans and Omega, and as the caliber 321, it went to the moon with the Apollo program. Well, it's still doing business in Vacheron and Breguet chronographs, and you can see here, it's still beautiful. Now, Vacheron does make a lot of changes. They may even use the more luxurious version, the 2320, but the 1142 changes the game a little bit, first with Geneva hallmark finish. And you can see since mid-2012 on the case as well as the movement, it's a standard for the fully assembled watch, not just the movement, but the finishing is superb. We have mirror beveling on the edge of the steel chronograph parts. They're brushed or satinated on their top. We have Côte de Genève across the few but beautiful bridges. We also have mirror beveling on those bridges, and you can see in particular the chronograph bridge features a number of prominent inward angles where bevels meet in sharp creases. And the beveling is done beautifully. At Vacheron, this sort of thing is done by hand. Well, there may be a little bit of mechanical initial conditioning of the bevels. You can see by how rounded and bright and broad they are that they're finished by hand. Now, all screw heads are black polished with chamfered slot and circumference. Then we have satinated wheels that actually have a decent amount of interior beveling, which is unexpected but welcome. We have a bridge for the escape wheel that has its own little sharp inward angles where bevels meet. And then we have a free sprung balance. This is another departure from the standard LeMania. LeMania doesn't have finishing like this. The LeMania also doesn't have a free sprung balance. This is adjusted in 5 positions, the chronometer standard. Adjustment is not a standard part of the LeMania movement. It also has an overcoil hairspring rather than the LeMania base's standard flat hairspring. That overcoil allows the watch to keep very consistent time in any orientation. And it has a higher beat rate than the LeMania, allowing for potentially more precise reading of chronograph time and better timekeeping. So this is 3 Hertz. The basic LeMania is 2.5. Now, manual wind, it's got a 48-hour power reserve. You can see it's got a lateral clutch, which you can see right here in action, engaging and disengaging with the chronograph center wheel. Adjacent to that, you can see the column wheel, which in addition to its polished crenellated towers, has a center that is that Vacheron Maltese cross logo, which is a nice and artful little element. We have a jumper spring on the minutes counter for the chronograph. That's why it changes semi-instantaneously. And then you can see the start-stop of the chrono. I have to say, this is one of the best feeling column wheel actions I've ever encountered. Really very special stuff. An awesome watch. What Vacheron does at its absolute best, dress watches that stand the test of time. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.